Are you the bottleneck in your business right now? If you want to learn how to scale your business and when to hire, how much to pay, what to do before you even hire, and then what kind of processes to put in place to make sure that your next hire is going to be super productive, comment pod, and I'll make sure to send you this episode. If it's on the list, it gets done no matter how you feel, no matter how busy you are, no matter what's going on. This single mindset shift could be responsible for you scaling your business beyond anything you've ever thought. Today in the podcast, I talked to my buddy Nate, who's put millions of dollars in his pipeline in the last couple of weeks. And we talk about where he's getting stuck and how a lot of it right now is that he's still doing a lot of the activities himself. We talk about 4 key things. One of them is like when to hire, like what he needs to do next, how he's going to get back some additional time before this hire even gets here. We talk about a daily practice that he's going to put into place in order to make his hire easier, but also his current pipeline easier. And it's just a fantastic, and we talk about compensation around underwriting and how to create something that's going to be a win for the long term. I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. Hey, before I jump into that, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Omwell. Omwell is an amazing tool for Canadian mortgage brokers. They obviously create these reports that show home equity and buying power, which is great. But more recently, they've added some cool features, being that it's because it's got all your database info, it's always looking for opportunities to save money for your clients. And so, for instance, it'll run, and if you have a database in there, it'll find every opportunity that someone has. It does the math for you, and then even creates the templates and emails that you can send out to your database. And these have been working like crazy for brokers. Check them out at omwell.ca and check out this conversation with Nate. Hey, Nate, welcome back.
Hey, Scott. Glad to be back.
So, hey, I always love to start these conversations off with a pipeline update and then a check-in on the stuff that we had talked about from our last episode.
Amazing. Yeah, let's do that for sure. So last time we chatted, I was getting into, I think it was end of January, I believe, and it was kind of a little bit of a slow start to the year. So I've been focusing on this underwriting, hiring, and I've noticed myself, I peeled back a little bit. I think I kind of took a step back to be able to take a step forward. But the last couple of weeks, I've been super busy. I'm grateful, very grateful. Everything else that all the weeds we planted started to come through. So right now we're at about $6 million closed, and another $2.5 million have been approved, with 1.1 sitting in broker complete. And I have about $11 million in pre-approvals right now, 11.1 million in pre-approvals. And we've got 9 million in apps received. Of course, those last 2 may not go anywhere, but the pipeline looks a lot stronger than it did last time we chatted.
Right. Amazing. And so last time we chatted, we really dove into hiring and underwriting. So how is that whole process going?
It's going great. You know, I noticed after we chatted a little bit, I had to take a step back and look at some other things that I know are involved behind the scenes that we don't always talk about in the show. And that is like things like how it's going to be structured. How are you going to deal with them on the payroll side, tax side, talk to my CPA about it. So I had to go back, and it's perfect timing because I am still in the process of wrapping up my 2025 taxation year for my companies. And so spoke to my accountant about that, made sure that I understand the exact structure that this employee needs to sit in before we move forward and hire them. So I've done that. That's all done now. And now I'm able to give the HR company the complete blessing to go ahead and get this done. So I think my target goal of April 30th, having them onboarded, is probably going to be realistic.
Right. And that's also usually in line with when the market, when we get a little bit busier too, when things thaw out a little. Typically April starts to get April, May, June, it picks up. So the only downside to that is that there's not time to get them integrated, but you've got you'll be able to make that work either way.
Well, you know what I have noticed is that so of course, naturally we know this, but to see it in principle, it reinforces it again and again, and that's that being kind of the one-man show that I kind of am for the most part, really. I've been super busy. I just told you about my pipeline. You can imagine that's pretty well one person doing all that. So of course, the tasks that I need to do that are part of my business development, of course, take a little bit of a backseat because I'm doing everything else. So hence the importance, again, reinforced of having this person in that role, taking care of all these things so that I can continue with business development, pipeline flow, and all that stuff, right? So again, the cycle continues, and it's in your face all the time as an entrepreneur that you do need to continue to delegate and grow, or else you're just going to be stuck.
Okay, so how do you given that you've got this massive pipeline that you've been building even without a ton of help, how do you manage your day? Like, walk me through. I'm interested to know what you're doing, because I would say, I've known you for quite a while now, but you have a lot of, you've got other businesses and you're very disciplined. So how are you running your day to be able to because some people I can tell you would be overwhelmed even with where you're at currently, let alone when you continue to grow?
It's definitely very, very fixed, discipline, blocked times where I have particular tasks that are non-negotiables that get done. We talked about it kind of a little bit previously. I think maybe on the first episode. I'll elaborate on it a little bit. Whereby, I get up in the morning. My non-negotiables always start with things like the stuff that are in my personal life that I have to do right when I get up in the morning. So skipping ahead of what I actually do when I get into bed, but pretty well working out is always first. Get that done, over with, finish really early,
Yeah.
and then it's always, unless it's pretty well always straight to my office where I get right into. I have some touch points I make with. It's kind of like how Dustin Woodhouse talks about his 10 at 10. I do that right at first thing in the morning. Where I have my touch points where I reach out to realtors, partners right away, and I have that period of time where I get that done. Like before I touch any files, the lead gen, lead flow activities always get done first, because without those, there will be no work. So that's
Yeah.
always non-negotiable. That gets done every day. And this is a Hummingbird Mortgages work always. My Hummingbird Mortgages is priority that gets taken care of first thing in each day. So that's always done first. Then if there are active files that need to be taken care of, so we talked previously about fires, things like that. There are
Yeah.
essential things that need to be done. Those get taken care of immediately following that. And I have no gap. Like I don't. There's no gaps in my day. There's not a second that's wasted. I'm not. You won't find me going through my phone, looking at shit throughout the course of the day. It's just work, 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 right? So from
Yeah.
lead gen, lead flow, it's right into
And then
files.
you schedule spontaneous time. You're the kind of we're going to do spontaneous time between 2:45 and 3 p.m. And then it's never
Yeah.
done spontaneous. I'm just kidding.
Oh, that's so funny. It's so true too, right? How sad is that? But it's it's like really essentially non-negotiables. My
But you
schedule
are
is
very
basic.
disciplined, and I know there's going to be some people go, "Oh, I'm not that disciplined." So I guess the overall skill, what I think you're talking about, is that you prioritize your prospecting, and then the secondary thing is then you get into file stuff.
Yeah, and it's
Correct?
blocking. It's these
Yeah.
are time blocks essentially. Of course, they're not to the second every day. You don't just, the clock doesn't stop. You don't stop if you're working on something. But yeah, they're time blocks. Those activities get done every day. I actually went. So you do it. I know that this will air later, but today being March 18th, I went for a jog this morning, and I put as on my tag on there was, if it's on the list, it gets done. That's all it says.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter how you feel. If it's on the list, it gets done. This shit is on my list every day. It gets done. That's just the
Do
reality of
you
it.
ever not feel like it?
Yeah, every day. Every day. I
Right.
never feel
But
like
okay,
it.
so but then how, I know how you're wired, and there's degrees to this, like there's like, if it's a dial, right? Like people are disciplined, is not, you're not, it's not binary 0 or 1. Nobody's ever 100%. It's a dial. But you are, if the dial is not if it's up to 100, you're up in the 90s percentile. I'm pretty high up there too, but not, I don't think I'm that high.
Well,
Uh
you're mixing two things there. You're talking the differences between, you're mixing emotion in with things that need to get done. Like here's the truth. It's kind of like eating, right? It's kind of like, oh well, I want a brownie, but I know I shouldn't have it. I know I should probably have that chicken breast instead. Well, I would rather have the pizza than the chicken breast, but it doesn't matter what I want. It matters what needs to get
right.
done. The same thing goes for this
Right.
with work. If it's on the list, it
Were
gets
you
done.
were you like that when you were a kid?
No, absolutely
No.
not. No.
When did this shift happen for you? Was there a certain, did it happen gradually, or I'm curious?
It's been an evolution, but I think that I was definitely not like this at all for many of my younger years. I just dabbled in a little bit. I think like everybody, and then I think that it's a maturation level whereby I've gone through different evolutions of successes and failures in business and in life in general. And then once you get to a point, I think potentially could be an age thing, could be just going through businesses that have failed, succeeded, failed, succeeded. You get to a point where you realize what needs to get done to succeed. It's like, if this is what success looks like way over here, I know it needs to get done between here and there. So I take all the emotion, throw it in the garbage, and I just work towards the success because I know what it's going to take, whether I feel like it or
Right.
not. That's just it.
Right. And
I
you
know that because
built
I'm
that.
older now.
Right. And you've also built that in your training. I mean, that's one of the great parts about physical training, is that it helps you with all, like I was reading about in Charles Duhigg book, The Power of Habit. He talks about keystone habits, and a keystone habit is that you make one choice on a habit and it affects. So people who exercise typically start eating healthier, even though it's not part, it's just natural. And then they also show up at work differently. And so it's amazing how this one keystone habit, I would say the discipline that you've developed from your physical training has very much applies to your business work as well.
The correlation between sports, physical activity, and discipline. Just let's just say working out. I don't care if you run, swim, whatever, work out.
Yeah,
The
whatever your thing
correlation
is.
between that and your success in business, as an entrepreneur, as an entrepreneur, as an employee, whatever it is, there's a direct correlation there. I've seen it 1,000 times in studies. I don't care what anyone says, because of the discipline factor. That's why my buddy of mine who owns a real estate team, we're good friends. We always talk about how, pardon me, hiring athletes is almost always a good idea, because they have a level of discipline that they know how to turn off the emotion and stick to the discipline.
Because they had to do stuff that they didn't want to do emotionally, but did it anyway, right?
Discomfort and
Yeah.
resilience. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What do you think is your biggest constraint right now? So that we've got the underwriting thing in the works. You've got a plan on that. We can talk if you want about compensation ideas, but what do you think is the biggest constraint that you're facing?
I would like to go there next for sure. The compensation. I think I got some questions on that would help me and help the listener substantially. But the biggest constraint right now is definitely the fact that here's this gap that we're facing. The whole part of this part of the $100 million journey series is this underwriting hiring portion. I'm so excited to see how this changes when I'm able to offload and delegate all of this work, this massive chunk that I'm doing. Essentially, I mean, really, I don't know how to equate a percentage to it, but if we were to say 60% of my workload, if you will, if I can just take that and hand it over to somebody, and then be able to delegate and be able to designate all that time now to the continued development, growth, lead gen, then I just think that right there will just open up a massive flow that you never know. We may be coming down a road a little bit further where I need to hire somebody else, because I do have
Yeah,
the ability to generate a
you
substantial
will.
amount of.
Because you what you're good at is the lead gen and the pipeline, building the pipeline. What so what do you have for help right now? Remind me and the listeners, what do you have anybody helping you at all with, like documents, or what is there any part of it? Or are you doing all of it right now?
Very, very, very little. I have someone that does a little bit of fulfillment, but for the most part, it's pretty well me, myself, and I. I do want to. That does lead me into one other question for you that I have, and that's this. And I know that this will help. Like I think I know the answer to it, but I think it'll help me hear it again and other people listening hear it. We have this problem as type A professional entrepreneurs, and also people who build success. We have this feeling like we think that we only one person can do that, and that's us, right? Or no
Yeah.
one can do it like us. So I think it would be advantageous to hear a little bit from your words on getting over that mindset of, let's say, for example, right now, like I'll give you a perfect example. I had a talk yesterday with a couple that I helped them get them into a place that they're extremely happy. And we had a talk, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, Nate, like you are like, thank you so much. I can't even begin to tell you how my last broker was a nightmare, and you got to this place, etc." And of course, we think instinctually, is there going to be somebody else that can do it like I do, or the way that I do, or take care of it the way that I do? And I think that can be a little bit of a mindset that can hold us back sometimes from hiring, delegating, and letting other people in. Can you kind of elaborate a little bit on how we can get around that mindset as as an entrepreneur trying to grow?
Yeah. So, well, and I've gone through this phase, and I even still do. It's more insidious the bigger your business gets, because you still start to think like, there's certain parts of the business that I still think I need to do, but I'm discovering that it's not the case. I'm discovering that someone else with the right set of tools, and especially with AI tools, and they can actually do parts of my job for me that better than me, because it's so consistent, right? And I'm trying to think of the guy's name. It was a painter back in the 1800s who was, and maybe I'll look it up after and share in the intro. But his whole thing was he painted portraits, and he was prolific. He painted like thousands of portraits. Compared to most people, it's very difficult. Portraits are very time consuming. And what he realized is that the only thing that people really cared about on the portrait was the face. Because if I'm getting my portrait done, I want the face to be good. The rest of it. So what he would do is he would paint the face, and he had an army of painters. This is like, it's so clever, that would paint the background of the body, because they didn't care about the hands and the background. But if you're a painter and the people are paying for the face in the mortgage business, I think it's very much the same. It's like there is a part of this process that they need. They need to know that Nate was part of it. And there's a whole bunch of it they don't care about. And as long as because that's the piece they're going to remember, and that's the piece they're going to pay for with their referrals. And
That's
so I
brilliant.
think it's the same. Yeah.
That's
And,
brilliant.
and
You know what? My discovery call is Nate 101 massive value. Like that's it. But it's
Don't give that
they're
away.
in
That
and
would be
done.
like that would be unless that was not, but I would suspect if you gave that away, that would be where you'd potentially kill your business. But
I
the
get it.
almost everything else could be done by someone else, and
Plus, I love
they're
that.
not going to care.
Plus,
Yeah.
I love doing
And
that
it's the
part.
part you're the best at. So it's like, this is the part they want. They want to have, I want to feel like he understands me, and back to when you start handing this stuff off, if you're recording all these calls, which you should be, you
Mm-hmm.
can get AI summaries of everything you talked about. So your assistant can jump in and be like, okay, all right, Nate said this, 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 this. Like you don't have to even hardly take notes. Notes will be done for you. Didn't exist when I started, but
Brilliant.
all your notes and everything can be there. Give it to them. They now know what to go with that file. If they have questions, of course, they talk to you. And so what I would do is I would not give up the discovery call, but everything else beyond that would
Mm-hmm.
be pieces that I'm willing to hand off, because
Well,
that's where you really build that trust and they go, I want
mhm.
to work with you. Otherwise, everything else is like, and you'll know. Yeah. So that's what I would, that's what I
I
think
love
anybody
that.
listening
Yeah,
to this,
you
there's only
answered
one
that.
piece where that matters.
Thank you. Yeah, you answered that perfectly. That's a great way to look at it, where it's kind of like, okay, you're still there, you're still handling the most important part, but the documents, the back end, the stuff, that's not something that it's not like no one can do it like you, right? Okay, makes
Right.
sense.
And I'll give you some other tips on working with someone in order to prevent you have to frame them as better at the other part than you, because they're going to know. The difference is when this guy had faces painted, I don't think that customers knew that it was a bunch of like student painters painting the hands and body and background. But they also didn't care. But in our business, it's a little different when, if you got Sally working for you and she reaches out to the client, they're like, who the hell is Sally? So a couple things on this. One, you always got to make sure there's an introduction. So
Mhm.
just, and how you frame that. The really good mortgage brokers frame their people as better at that
Mhm.
job than them.
Got it.
Right. And you know this already instinctively, but you'd say something like, okay, you know what? So, Nate, really looking forward to working with you. Next step is this. We're going to get some I got a document specialist. This girl knows documents back better than me. Like she knows them, and she's going to reach out to you and make sure that we have everything we need so that I can put the strategy in place. So I'm never going to refer them to as my assistant, or because nobody wants to feel like they're getting relegated to a second class, somebody who's not going to help them. So
Of
you always
course.
got to upsell on the handoff to the person that's picking it up, whether it's your document or your underwriting person. And on the underwriter side, it could be something like, hey, just my whole job is to come up with a strategy. My underwriter is an absolute wizard at
Mhm.
navigating the lender side of it, and they work on that side. I make sure I work with you that we hit the right strategy. They go,
Brilliant.
okay, great. They have trust there. That would be one of the key things to having a good working relationship with your underwriting partner or your team. And then so the communication piece, and then there was another thought I had there and I lost it, but it'll come back to me. I'm sure I've probably said this kind of thing before, but I feel like that's one of the key things you have to do well is in the handoff, and that it doesn't feel like you're because here's the reality is, and this is a mistake I've seen brokers make, is that they hire somebody to do the part they hate, but then they talk about it like it's a negative thing, right? It's like, oh, nobody's going to want to do this because like I hate it. It's like, no, that's not true. There are
Mhm.
people out there that love it and that will be thrilled to do the part of the job you don't.
For sure.
And if you, but you want to, when you're looking for someone, look for somebody who gets lit up by the part that you don't get lit up by.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
I think, that'll help you with selection around this person. But yeah, dude, I'm excited. Oh, the other thing I did have another thought is that, I mean, even between now and when because you said 60% of your work, I think you will eventually get 60%. The problem is that it's going to be the process is going to be very slow. It's going to be 20% and then 30 and 40. And like, it's a dial. It's like saying, hey, Scott, if I came to you and said, hey, Nate, I want to have 11% body fat, you'd be like, okay, brother, you can do it. Here's what you're going to have to do. You can absolutely do it in the next year, but you're going to have to do these things, and it's never going to happen in a healthy way.
Great analogy. That is
Yeah.
I've heard a couple of those people lately. That's a great analogy. I love that
Yeah.
one.
And so this is the same thing. You're not going to get to 60. So don't think initially it's going to be more work, not less, because you're going to still be doing the job. And so there's that piece. So here's what I would say. And that's probably, let's say you hire them, would we say April 30th? So
Yeah.
so then they'd be starting in May. If it was me, I would look at getting some sort of a short-term solution now that's helping you with compliance and document signing packages and stuff if you don't have that, because that is going to be not go away for a while. You probably
Mhm.
got a few more months. You probably got 4 months of that. And if you had some sort of person in between that, even as a contract basis where you pay per file, knowing that maybe that gets swallowed up by your underwriter
Got
at
it.
some point, but it will be you can buy back 20% of your time right now with, or 15% that you can then use to train that person. And also because when they come on, there's an initial, you're going to be going backwards a little bit. And so build in that buffer before you have to go back. That's what
Makes
I would
sense.
say, is that you have some kind of help there so that you're not, that, because my concern is that you'll be like, oh my God, Scott, I'm trying to train this person and prospect and it's like, it's a lot.
Outstanding.
And,
That's great.
and then that other person can take the other tasks eventually, but those tasks that you can outsource, I would do those sooner.
Love that. That reminds
Was
me.
me. Yeah.
People love when we go down this road a little bit. But that reminds me of people who come to me and ask me about a lean bulk. I want to do a lean bulk, and I'm like, okay, yeah, here, let's take a step back here a little bit. Here, take a step back here a little bit.
What does that mean?
That's my company's lean bulk you just gave me. That's perfect.
Yeah, exactly. Lean, like, so for anybody who's not a fitness person, maybe explain what you mean by a lean bulk.
Lean bulk. Every man on earth and women usually want to. They're always like, "What's their goal?" Like, so people come to me and they ask me for fitness advice. They want to know, like, "Hey, Nate, I want to know." I say, "Okay, what's the goal?" I want a lean bulk, and I'm like, "Oh." Do you understand the fact that, first off, a lean bulk is like two opposite things? So if you're either going to bulk or you're going to cut, right? Like for you to like grow, lean bulk means that you're going to put on just lean muscle only. So I sometimes say to people, it's possible, like I can do it. But you have to be starting at the place that is such a perfect place because you've got an extraordinary amount of fitness knowledge and experience to be able to balance your nutrition and your exercise, to be able to only put on lean muscle only, like without any fat, right? And
Yeah.
so when people say they want to lean bulk, I'm always like, okay, let's take a step back here for a second. So it's kind of like me saying to you, Scott,
That's exactly what you're doing. You're wanting the lean bulk.
60% of
You're
my
like,
time here, Scott, right?
like, whoa, yes, you'll get there, brother. But it's like, it is exactly. It's like saying, I want to make double the money and I want to work half as long. It's all, yes, great.
Yeah.
But you're not going to do both at the same time. You're going to have to build the business up and then slowly, hire to get your time back. But so you're totally right. I think it's a perfect. Well,
this is the episode of the
metaphor.
lean bulk. We got the name of the
lean bulk. Yes, this is brought to you by creatine or
yeah, even better. Love it. Beautiful.
Okay, so awesome. Do you want to chat about? So, do we talk about compensation in terms of?
We started
because you talked to your accountant, and so maybe give me some your whatever you're comfortable sharing around what your accountant had suggested.
Simple. Just the way that the payroll is going to be structured under CRA and corporate, RC number and how we're going to be able to be paying them. That's simple stuff. Like like the things I'm going to be required on payroll side of things. That's simple. It's more about I think the value that what I would gain and the listeners would gain here would be a little bit of to elaborate a little bit. We talked briefly about compensation and how it can be structured and packaged previously, but I think to dive a little bit deeper into just specifically. So for example, what I'm thinking about is, base salary and then additional compensation. I know that, we're openly talking about how like Denise has structured this really well and other people that quite well, where there's a component of maybe bonus, a component of some kind of share, if you will, depending on how you want to define that. But just to get your insight on how that might be the most advantageous, where, for example, I don't want to hire somebody that's just a contractor that whatever, they're not connected. I want this to be a cultural thing whereby they feel part of the family and they're growing with the growth of the company, and we do this together and they get all the benefit of the growth. So how would you recommend that kind of be structured in that regard?
Well, what you're referring to is, I've heard it called before, like a missionary versus a mercenary, right? A mercenary's there for the dollars only. And a missionary's there because they get the same vision as you. And but the way to do that is they've got to get a benefit of the upside. So I like the idea of a base salary. Anybody that is, if they're too incentivized in the other way, it's not as, I think they can it can be problematic. But when I think I've talked about in other episodes, but so if let's say you set a base salary, whatever that is, and then I would set a minimum threshold for target of profit for the business. And so if the business, because I've seen, and Denise has told me this before and other people, is that they've had pay structures set up where they're paying out bonuses, but the company's not actually making money because it's based on file count, because it's based on volume, but they've bought down rates, they paid for legal fees, they paid for appraisals. And so by the time all the everything shakes out, the owner is not making money. But the people working there are getting, and they don't know that though. The reality is that the employee, it's not the employee's fault. It's not like I don't think that it's just that they don't realize that. So that's why you need to base it on some sort of a profit threshold.
Minimum threshold for target profit. Okay, got that.
Yeah, anything below that, and you should be profitable. Like we've done the same with the brokerage. We have a minimum threshold for profit, and we don't pay it. We don't call it profit share because profit share assumes that it's like all profit. We do gain share, so we've got a minimum threshold of profit, and then above that gain share is like it's anything above that number. We split the money a third to employees, a third to owners' equity, and a third to growth. And the more they can grow that, the more they can make. And then if you're going to, a great way to, we hired a coach. We spent a lot of money on this coach, but it was absolutely worth it because it was complex. But I'll give you the Cole's notes is you show them whatever that percent of their salary is, you show them what that is in days off, the equivalent. And so right now they're targeting about 28 days paid of the equivalent of 28 days of pay. So, because they're like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of free, a lot of days pay. And it is cash as well. Right. But the cool thing about that is that then they can actually see it because it's more granular. It's sort of like talking about, the monthly payment versus this, oh, you're going to save all this money. Well, what's my monthly payment? I care about that. It's like this is the equivalent of this many days off. And they go, oh, okay, that's cool. So I like that. We have that baked into our calculator. And then if they go way past it, you can increase it. Like, it's like, hey, it's a percentage. So like and then for us, we pay it out quarterly. You got to have a long-term, you got to balance this long-term vision with incentives that are not too far away. If they're too far away, people forget about them. And so we pay every quarter. We look at it every week. You don't have to do it weekly, but I would probably minimum every 2 weeks because the longer the cycle is that they can't correct. Right. And so you'd want to be, and it doesn't need to be a long meeting. It's like, here's where we're at. Here's what we need to work on. Because like what we do is we tie our KPIs. I had showed you our scoreboard a few minutes ago, but we tie our KPIs into that financials. And so if the financials look off, it's like, what do our KPIs tell us? And so then you look at your KPIs, which are the things that are driving the business. And it could be Nate needs to do this many number of meetings. He needs to do this many. And if you see that number drop off, you're going to see it in the numbers, like just as sure as God made little green apples. And then you can show them. And then if there's things they need to do, they can action those things. But I love that because then it creates this ownership mindset and incentivizes them to think like an owner. And when Denise did this, like all of a sudden they didn't pay for as many appraisals, they didn't pay for as many legal fees because they were like, wait a second. But if it was just based on a file count number or a volume number, they'd be like, oh, let's just get the deal done. I don't even care. And so that's where you have to be more strategic than that.
Brilliant. Love that so much. So we got base salary, we got gain share kind of tied to a minimum threshold target profit. That's brilliant. I love that.
Yeah. And if you want to read a book, probably the best book on this topic, there's like Jack Stack wrote the original book. It's kind of hard to read, but it's called Get in the Game. And it's tied to his series of books. And it's basically a story about a kid who takes over his dad's, I think they're laundromats. And the kid wants to change it to this model. And he shows how because part of it is educating people on the numbers too. It's one thing to show them the numbers, but if they don't understand how their actions affect the numbers, they don't care. Right. And so I feel like it could be a good resource for anybody listening if they want to get into this, into this type of structure.
Get in the game. What's the author's name again?
I'll find it for you. It's basically a storybook model, kind of like how Get in the Game.
Amazing. That's great. I love this.
I'll find it right now.
Is extremely valuable the way that this is structured because nobody thinks about this, and this is so smart. It's great. I love it. And then, of course, the KPIs and the weekly or at least biweekly meetings are essential to keep your finger on the pulse, right?
Yeah, you see it all the time. So then, and it's called Get in the Game and How to Create Rapid Change and Lasting Results, and it's by Rich Armstrong and Steve Baker. And so these are guys who are coaches, I think, of his whole model. And yeah, to me, I would never run a business without this going forward. I'd never, ever consider it because it's just that effective, right?
That's a lot. I'll be ordering that book. That's great.
Yeah, check it out. Okay, so what are things we want to chat about? Like before your pipeline is moving, you got this hire. I mean, you don't have to, but dude, I'd encourage you to find some short-term solution for some admin tasks.
I do have that. Yeah, I do have that. Yeah.
So don't take that away yet then. So if you do have somebody in place, then for sure. Or if they can expand a little bit, what you want to do is get some extra time so that you're able to put it into this new person as they come onboarded, right?
Yeah, very smart. Love it. Brilliant. Yeah, that's great. I mean, in reality right now where I am at this point in the year, the start is, I could see how the importance of all that is because, life's starting to get busy again. We talked a little bit earlier about how, I like to, my life is more than just work, right? Of course. So between working out and family, and it's going to start getting busy for us right now, my son and his schedule and basketball, and I'm very much a part of it. So yeah, it's important that I'm able to effectively put systems in place so that life is still good. And it's not just one thing, multidimensional. So this is fantastic advice. I love this so much. I think that it'll be fun for us to carry this episode along throughout the course of the year because once I get the person hired, we can talk about how the onboarding needs to be done effectively. But I could see quickly after that, you'll know around the corner more than I do. But quickly, probably soon around the corner after that, when I'm delegating all my time now to lead flow, probably be looking at maybe the next person or the next.
So then what I probably the next hire would be, typically you can do it several different ways, but likely a fulfillment person. Because if you're, depending on the skill of your underwriters, if your underwriter is very skilled, they're going to be the most expensive sort of, team member you have. They're like the quarterback, if you will, if you're the football franchise. But getting them help so that they're able to focus strictly on moving files, solving file problems, and then having somebody else that can, gather stuff, clean it up. That's typically what I see people do, is they have, you increase the capacity of an underwriter and a lot of our lenders do this too.
It's like a sous chef, right? Like they're preparing everything so that the chef can
do sous chef. Yeah, there you go. That's another way to think of it too.
Cool.
Oh, the other thing I would say is this is what I was going to say earlier and I forgot, is that I've seen one of the habits, and maybe you do this already, is a daily pipeline review. So you want to do a 15-minute pipeline review. And if you bake it into your business now, when you have your staff, you're going to do that with them. And what happens in that pipeline review, and I've talked to people that, $100 million plus producers, and they said this is one of the best things they did because it helped solve problems faster. So every day for 15 minutes, it's like a standing meeting. Okay, what files, where are we at? Where are these files at? And then they give you their prioritization for the day. And so they say, I'm going to do this, this, and this. If nothing else gets done today, these 3 things get done. What'll happen is you'll quickly recognize how they prioritize. It's kind of like triaging patients at the and if they don't, if you can correct them if they're off track, because you may realize, hey, no, we actually do them in the different order, or don't forget to do, you got to order, if you don't order this appraisal, we're in big, like this file is the subject to financing is not going to happen. And so what happens is that, because what can happen as soon as you have this other person in there, they if they don't prioritize the same way, they may be doing the right job in the wrong order, and it's actually causing other problems. And so to get ahead of it, just bake in a daily pipeline meeting, and it doesn't need to be long.
That is extremely brilliant and valuable. I never would have thought of that. And you asked me earlier about my schedule and how it is, and I'm talking about I'm disciplined, non-negotiable. That's brilliant. A 15-minute daily pipeline review, first thing. That is so smart. I love that.
But even if you do it yourself now, and then you're looking at your own pipeline, looking, okay, I got to make sure this, and this gets done. And then if because which things can be pushed and which can't, and then you just bring that other person in, and now it'll help you solve problems fast and in real time. So
I can see, like, because you know what, this is great for people to learn about inefficiencies. Like, I have my Zoho, I use Blue Mortgage, and of course that's my entire pipeline in there between there and Finmo, and of course I do this, but it's not in it with any kind of strategic thought whatsoever, right? So to be able to do it very specifically with that intent, so smart. I love that.
Yeah. It wasn't my idea. I actually learned it from, I want to say, this guy named Grant. What was his last name? He was a huge producer down in California. And when I'd interviewed him, he was doing hundreds of millions a year. And I said, what's the best change? I always ask this question, by the way. You should ask this of other mortgage brokers. What's the best change you made in the last year? And it was like, oh, dude, this pipeline review thing has saved me so much headaches. Because otherwise he was jumping. What was happening is he was jumping in last minute to put fires out. So everything, get these people, this team going. And then all of a sudden he's getting pulled in to put out fires because the fire he could have avoided the whole thing by having that time on a daily basis to just check in.
So simple.
Yeah. So
I know I've heard Wally talk about that sometimes, where he starts his day with something somewhat similar, where they have like a team huddle up or whatever it is, where they do, and they set the objective that whatever it is, it needs to be done. Right. That's so smart.
Yep, I love it. Well, man, hey, I always love these conversations. I'm excited to hear how it goes with your next hire and our next chat. And let's. Is there anything last you want to say to audience that before we wrap up?
Keep kicking ass. Anybody that has any particular questions or information that they maybe want to hear us talk about.
Reach out to us. So reach out to Nate.
Yeah, for sure. Reach out for sure, because I'd love to bring it up with Scott in here. And I learn every time. I get tons of feedback from people on our episodes. Tons of feedback from people, and it's on questions, on they love learning about what we're talking about, or how did I end up handling this or pivoting. So yeah, continue the questions, keep them coming. If you happen to be somebody who might be interested in the types of thing that I'm building here, let me know as well. But yeah, absolutely, I'll bring it into the show for you. So it's amazing, Scott, your advice here. Like, I pick up these nuggets, and I've implemented so many things from you over the last even a year and a half, but the tiny little things that seem small make the biggest impact. So I'm grateful for that. So thank you for that.
Yeah, well, yeah. The idea is, and these are everything I've shared with you guys is learned from other people. So
kind of stolen.
Yeah, it's all if it's not bolted down, we're going to steal it. Yeah. So okay, thanks, brother.
Thanks so much, buddy.
Hey, thanks again for listening, and hopefully you felt inspired from that conversation. And I always love chatting with Nate. He's such a motivated guy, but he also just executes. And the great part about this is that he's basically being totally open about what he's doing, what's working, what's not. And I feel like it's going to be a great opportunity to learn and have just look over his shoulder as he continues to build this. I always say there's no problem in your mortgage business someone else hasn't already solved. The problem is who's got the solution. This podcast is designed to provide some of those solutions. If also each week I put in an email called Peckford's Playbook, and in it I share tactics. I share links to stuff that we're sharing. You can get on that email list, check it out. Thanks for listening, and I will see you on the next episode.